Hello, everyone. My name is Marc Rand. I'm the managing partner at Community Capital Advisors. The following video is the first of three I've recorded with Ra'Shaud Haines, Foundation for Louisiana's Community Investment Fund Manager. In this first video, we discuss what lenders should really consider when lending to entrepreneurs of color. We also talk about the important role that banks owned and operated by people of color play within the larger ecosystem. Check out the other videos I recorded with Ra'Shaud for more information on how lending to communities of color support overall community development goals and different roles philanthropy can play to support communities of color. Also, visit Community Capital Advisors US for more great interviews with industry leaders in impact investing. Enjoy. And Ra'Shaud, let's start in just kind of like big picture, and tell me a little bit about like how race and class have affected communities of color, especially entrepreneurs of color, and why it's so important to support folks through traditional banking and otherwise.
So starting off with a simple question, right? Communities of color, have a number of challenges and entrepreneurs, a number of challenges that are unique and that need addressing. So just to back up, historically, one of the biggest challenges for entrepreneurs of color has been lack of access to capital. So not that long ago, there were actual laws in place that wouldn't allow you to go to banks, traditional banks, to get loans or to lend in certain areas. So, it was written into the laws. More recently, it's more of a unspoken rule. So it's just harder. One, just knowing where to go. We're generations behind. We've lost back. We're just catching up or trying to catch up from those years of being left out of the traditional banking system. And then just literally a lack of access, so not knowing who to talk to or, not having those connections in those communities. So those things have been plaguing the communities of color for a long time. And that's, one of the things I've been working in my career to try to address.
Yeah, and what I also find frustrating too is some people say, well, if it's just an application, it's just an application. Like, how do I know if Ra'Shaud is Black or not? But if you then there's the name biases too, right? Like, how many white people do I know that have the name Ra'Shaud Haines? Probably not too many. So so there's that piece that plays into it as well.
Yeah, there's names, there's zip codes. I've been fortunate to have and I haven't always been really happy to have a name like Ra'Shaud, a unique name out there, but you know what's coming at you. So it's not, I'm not caught by surprise when you get there. So there are a number of ways to identify who you are. A lot of them have been well documented, but yeah. The data is pretty clear on that. Minorities are minorities, people of color, those disadvantaged groups have a less likelihood of getting those loans or getting getting placement in a whole or higher rates and all those other sort of things that we see in the news.
And so kind of as a lender, both of us, years in the trenches, right? What do you think is the difference that people should consider when trying to be supportive and unbiased or whatever, which is obviously difficult to do, let's be honest. What should we consider, or what should lenders consider when lending to entrepreneurs of color versus someone like me?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. One of the big things that I have encountered, in lending money to all kinds of different people, is the biggest difference between minorities and the majority folks. people come to banks, minorities particularly come to banks as that first source of capital. And when typically, I remember in my first job, they taught me that the first source of capital is normally coming from the 3 F's, friends, family, and fools. And so that equity, that lack of equity sort of puts you behind in those ratios that we talk about all the time, so those loan to values or debt to income, that skin in the game. So sometimes some allowances need to be made for that, particularly with entrepreneurs in color, just to kind of get them started, to allow you to get started in there, especially in the banking industry. Because if you don't get that start, or you don't have that access to that capital for when, your initial plan doesn't work right away, then you're handicapped where some of your other peers may not be. So so those things take into consideration, and maybe put a little bit more weight on really judging the character of that individual, and really looking into some of those other 5 C's that we learned about.
I think that's great. I'm curious, we did a little work together in Louisiana, and understanding a bit more about your history is helpful. In the news, and I know you're a news junkie too, and on NPR the other day, there was a special on, I forget who it was, I think probably our dear friend, Mr. Kai Risdall on NPR, but they were talking about the lack of banks that are owned and operated by people of color, especially the Black community. And I'm just curious, any thoughts on that, or what you see?
So I did, I worked for Liberty Bank and Trust for the last 10 years, which is the third or fourth largest minority bank, African American owned bank in the country. And so I had an opportunity to meet a number of different bank presidents out there, and those sort of things. One of the things that's missing when you look at these minority banks, and one of the things that that we're able to do, is they're just, it's hard to put a real value on just having people that either look like you, that live in your community, that just understand. So there's this cultural understanding where your entire bank, from the teller level all the way up to the underwriters to the vice presidents, are African American. Then you can, when you hear certain situations in a bank, you might be able to relate that to something that happened to your uncle or your friend or something like that. And that helps with making those decisions, going back to that character side of it. And so, and also there's this affinity too. You go to church with these people, you go to, or, worship wherever you worship with these folks, you go to the grocery store, you're going to see them. So that they're more likely to pay. So this is an affinity that you have with these Black banks. And it also takes away some of the nerves of the individuals coming to borrow from you. And so it's let's
be honest, going to a bank is scary for anyone, let alone, somebody that may not be traditionally served by banking. So I think it's fantastic what you're saying, and so important too.